Good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining. Just to receive any apologies, none received, Chair. Okay, so then we'll have about, let's see if hopefully Councillor Ray will be able to join us shortly. Are there any council members who would like to declare an interest on tonight's agenda, please? No. Very much. Okay. Item 3. So I don't have a chair's report. Have we received any? No other last shared, I think, comes forward. Very good, thank you, Daniel. And have we received any public questions? None received, Chair. Okay, thank you very much. Well, let's move on to the minutes. So there's a couple of sets of minutes here. So just have to sort of take them in aggregate. So the first one is the minutes from just one, Chair. Yeah. All right. Sorry. I missed. Need to put my glasses back on. So just minutes from the 10th of September at the previous Corporate Policy Finance Committee. Everyone who's able to approve those minutes, please raise your hand. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Very good. Okay, so we just move on to section 6, the officers' reports, please, Daniel.
Thank you, Chair. So the first item tonight is the board panel and resolution tracker. All the items on the resolution tracker from our last meeting have been marked as complete. And just so the committee's aware, the main items that will be considered in January is the final budget and the risk management strategy and risk register. But have to take any questions.
There's no questions. All those councillors able to note and approve the planner and the updated resolution tracker. Please raise your hand. Thank you. Okay, could we move on to the item about the budget update, please?
Thank you, Chair. So this is the budget control, which outlines the current position as at the end of September of this year. If I can draw your attention to the Appendix A on page 15, it shows the actual income and expenditure compared to the revised budget. We're currently showing a favourable variance of just over 15,000. I'll quickly go through some of the variances that we've spoken about already at previous meetings. So the tennis courts are generating £20,000 more income budgeted. We've had increased sponsorship at community events, which has also exceeded the budgeted target, and we've had higher investment interest due to reduced capital spend and higher cash balances. The revised design of the Rockhampton Pavilion also reduces budgeted running costs, creating a favourable variance. So I'll now spend a bit more time on the new variances, just to bring those to your attention. So with employees, so as part of the recent restructure that was agreed by February HR committee, posts were budgeted to start from April, but by the time the recruitment process was carried out, posts weren't filled until June, July time. So there was a couple of months the posts were vacant. And on top of that, the pay award was budgeted at 5%, but what was actually received was 3.2%. So that's meant there's the favourable variance that you see, but just to confirm to committee, there's no vacant posts at the minute, or all posts have been filled as part of the restructure. Regarding insurance premiums, in previous years we've seen big increases in those, so that's what was budgeted this year. What's happened is now the bills have actually come in, the premiums have levelled off, so we've received so it's not a saving, but it's a favourable variance against the budget, what I predicted would happen. So it's kind of good news that they've started to level off now, hopefully. The biggest change is the adverse variance from the extensive tree works following the latest health and safety survey. So to give you a bit more context, the council manages over 31,000 trees across 31 different sites. As a landowner, the council has a legal duty of care to ensure its trees do not pose an unreasonable risk to people or property. To meet this responsibility, regular inspections are carried out and any necessary health and safety works are completed. The base budget for tree works for this year is 50,000, but this has already been exceeded due to the significant amount of remedial works identified in the latest health and safety survey. These works are essential to maintain public safety and comply with our legal obligations. Looking ahead, costs are expected to rise further as we move into the winter months when stormy weather typically increases and there's more of a need for reactive tree works to be carried out. While this overspend is unavoidable, given the circumstances, it highlights the importance of ongoing investment in tree management to balance safety with the conservation and amenity value of our green spaces. Further detail on all these variances are in section 5 on pages 12 to 14. There's one other thing, if I can just cover quickly, so it's a bit more of a governance thing that's not part of the agenda. So if I can ask once we're done with our debate for a recommendation that's not included in the agenda item, which is in line with our financial regulations, which means so payments of over 30,000 need to be noted by the committee. So as soon as possible. So we've received and paid our latest insurance premiums. So one of the largest one paid to our insurance broker, James Hallen Limited, is for our commercial combined policy, which is for £33,912.24 to be exact. So the policy provides cover for things such as property damage, employer's liability, and our public liability, along with some other things. But the terminology they use is commercial combined. But it's just a governance thing to make the committee aware that we've paid an invoice that was over 30,000.
Is that on this long list of small
It's included in the corporate management line.
management line? Okay.
That's where the insurance is. But again, it's that thing with insurance this year.
Yeah.
So overall, we've got a net saving, but one of the invoices is over
It's over 30.
30,000.
Yeah, that's complete.
Right, okay, I was just going to ask, because obviously we've got this 15,000 favourable variance year to date. Month this is to, I can't remember. September. And that is despite the £34,000 inevitable spending on the tree works. Just trying to think a bit ahead, because I accept the comment that adverse variance on the trees is going to grow for the reasons you've said. That makes absolute sense to me. But also some of these other variants. Have you any feel at all where we might be come March?
It's a best guess. There's so many variables, but my hope is that we'll be in a similar position come March. I think hopefully commercial income will continue to improve as it has been, and that will cover off any unknown tree expenditure or anything else that might crop up between now and the end of March. I'm hoping we'll be in a similar kind of position.
I can't remember last year because we cancelled the Christmas carnival last year. Did that actually cost us money or any significance?
There was a lot of work done by the team on that, so there was a smaller event was carried out, but some contractors we had to pay a deposit for to kind of book them for the event. So there was still a cost. It still could cost us. But with the relationship that we've got with those contractors, where we've got a long-standing relationship with them, some were better than others, but a lot of them were kind of, all right, okay, we understand, and we'll roll that deposit on to the next event, whether it be summer carnival or food and drink that would be used in that. So I know a lot of work was done behind the scenes by the team to try and get as best value for money as we could.
That's one further supplementary. The interest on the investments, which has raised 37,000. On average, what sort of interest rates are we getting on the deposits? I start to contact with that now.
So with the longer term, so the £1 million with Nationwide, I think my head The latest one I did was just under 4%, 3.7. But I can confirm the
All right,
exact
no, sounds about right for tying money up for a year. That sounds about right at the minute. Recently it could fall off, of course. But no, that sounds about, I just wasn't quite sure what sort of rates we were learning. Thank you, Chair.
You're very welcome. Any other questions or comments from the councillors, please?
Just on this tree, the tree, how often, I know you can be hit by branch falling, or we might have a storm, but that's quite a chunk of extra spend. So how often do they run surveys to identify potential hazards? I'm just wondering if there's a way of maybe highlighting trees that might be at risk so that we don't get such nasty surprises.
Thank you. Good question.
So the health and safety surveys are carried out every 18 months. It was, I can't remember when the case law, and in the last few years, there was a piece of case law that said it should be every 18 months. So the way it used to be carried out, depending on what your council's policy said, if your policy said we're going to survey the trees every 3 years and something happened in between, you could say, right, okay, our policy says every 3 years, we've met our policy, that's fine. We've met all of our obligations. Since this bit of case law's come in, it said you've got to survey your trees every 18 months. So the way the kind of time cycle works, it should be that we have 2 quite expensive years and then a cheaper year with the survey and the corresponding works after the survey happened. Just for a bit more context, the surveyor has to be a separate company to when we go out to tender for who's actually going to complete the tree work. So there can't be any conflict that you have a surveyor say, oh, there's loads of work that you need to do. By the way, this is how much it's going to cost you. So they tell us all the work that needs to be done, and then we carry out a separate tender exercise, and the surveying company can't carry out the tree works. Okay. There's a bit more context to that. Is there anything else I can add to that? I suppose the way we kind of split the budget out, you've got the surveys occur, and then the tender exercise and the works for those surveys. The breakdown that they give us are it's a red, amber, green report to say how urgent the works are, and some of the work are, this is dangerous, it needs to be done now, where I think we had an example in High Street a couple of weeks ago. So that's the urgent health and safety work. There's then the kind of the responsive work that's done, there's wings and things like that. And then there's also the planned management works that we've done. So a decision was taken recently about the poplars in Batford, where they're not the expert on this, but the way colleagues have described it, they're non-native poplars. They go very quickly with a very small root ball. They've been in a long time, and we've had too many trees. So they're too unstable. We've had too many trees fail in recent years that it's a known problem now for us. So there's a big piece. So that piece of planned management work is being carried out this year to make sure that those trees are looked after properly. And then as part of the policy as well, they're being removed and more native poplars and some other trees are being planted in their place in Batford.
On that list, colour-coded list, do they ever ascribe a rough indication of what it's going to cost to deal with those issues?
No, they don't. Not the surveyor. So that's when so if they say something has to be done within 6 weeks or 6 months or reviewed again in a couple of years, they just flag it as red, amber, green, and then we have to write the tender specification and go out to tender for those health and safety works.
A question. Since we have quite extensive green areas in Harpenden, is it possible to train a park ranger to become surveyor, or does it have to be external?
I think it's quite a specialist skill, because what they do is, so as part of the survey, we've got all of our trees numbered across all the land we own. So as part of it, we're paying for that software. So we can go back and see all of the surveys done on each tree over the last however many years and see it's been reported. So again, for example, if all of a sudden something failed that was green on the list for the last however many years, we can sort of say, look and say, right, we've done everything correct, because the surveys keep on coming back that there's no problem with the tree. But as it is so specialist with the software that they have, to set up our own software like that just isn't feasible. So as part of the survey, we need that software, we need that skill set for them to carry that out. And I think it's better to have an independent personally to kind of carry out that work, because I think it is a big skill to have.
Great. As from the saying that the record and software we need for the surveyors, is that meant that the surveyors have to be the same, like type or association, that we cannot change? Like,
We can do. I think what we've done in the past, when we changed surveyor a few years ago, and it was a case of downloading the information from the previous surveying company, but it's in a big sort of database kind of thing rather than in the map, and then the new surveyor companies but building upon that. So again, it's I suppose a bit like for me changing the if I was ever wanted to change the accountancy software, you can take a dump of all of the information that you've got, and then maybe, like, I think there was a period of time where we had both bits of software as the crossover, but then now we've moved on to the new piece of software.
so basically we tend to like use the same surveyor for like several years or prolong the period.
Yeah,
So when we do the tender, we already expected like the increment to be in one of the tender, like for example for next 5 years or something, right?
yeah. So it will be I can't remember what the value is of the survey, but yeah, that principle, yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. Any further questions, comments? Very good. Well, thank you very much for the very good responses. Okay, so just going back to the front paper, so just committee is asked to note the report and the release of the reserve and clearance, and also the payment of over 30,000, and thirdly, just to note the payment of the insurance premium. Everyone in favour of accepting those three items, please raise your hand. Thank you. Okay, so next item is, I think, it's the second look at the budget.
Check. So since the first look was presented in September, several changes have been identified, and we now have an updated position for net 26-27. The current budget requirement stands at just over 2.2 million, which would mean an increase in net expenditure of 109,000. Based on the current assumptions, this translates to a precept increase of 6.47%, or around £7.43 per year on a Band D property. If I can draw your attention to the changes in the table on page 18 of your pack. Yeah.
Yes.
These variances we've just spoken about in the last item with the tree management and the commercial income. So just trying to reflect what's happening in the budgetary control this year in next year's budget. It's important to note that there are still some unknowns, particularly the council tax base, which we expect to be confirmed in December. Growth in the council tax base will reduce our overall preset requirement. So the 6.47 quoted in here, it should, when we come to present the final budget in January, it should be less than the 6.47% quoted in this report. at the September meeting, the committee asked officers to explore options to reduce the precept increase by 2%, which would require a saving of around 34,000. These options are presented today, discussion in the table on page 21. They do not include measures that would create contractual or legal issues or lead to higher costs in the longer term. The purpose of this debate is to consider whether we maintain the current service levels and quality or make adjustments to achieve the lower precept increase. So happy to take any questions on either part of the report.
Councillor Drake.
Surprise, surprise. Okay. All right. Well, first of all, thank you, Dan, for preparing that report. Because obviously I instigated it back in June that we should have a higher percentage. I wasn't actually obviously at the last meeting. And I understand the contractual items we can't address within that list because there's obviously a lead time to doing that, but that also reduces the amount of the budget that can be looked at. Staff, for example, represent 52% and an 8.2% increase. Thank you. I did ask how that increase arose, and you've sent me a reply, so I won't go back over that. Thank you. It seems to me that currently the inflation rate, as 10 economists get 10 different answers, is about 4%. So we are asking for an increase which is in excess of 150% of the current inflation rate, which is regarded as high. It does seem to me that at the moment that many households, you know, as we've told on the news every night, are struggling with cost of living. I suspect possibly less in Harpenden than in other parts of the country. I'm prepared to accept that, but it is still a matter of pressure on people. I also accept that the relevant amounts that we're talking about here are relatively small, but if everybody takes that attitude and it adds up, then you've got to look at the bit that you've got under your control. I think one of the problems, and I highlighted this, you know, during my first term on the council, and Pip might remember this, was the fact that there is the way that local authority budgets are drawn up is completely different to the way that either a household or a company would look at it. Because what you do is you say, these are the services we want to provide, this is the cost, this is the income we think we can get, and taxpayers have to make up the difference. Whereas other concerns that households start with their earnings, their benefits, their savings or whatever, and that's what they can spend. And that means that they also face choices about what they can spend that money on. And I see no reason why a council at any level, county, district, town, should be any different to that. This isn't a party point, by the way. I think you can criticise councils across the country for doing exactly the same thing. So I did say that now. But I think that, you know, so yes, because a lot of the things, if you look down here, is yes, we can do it, but it would mean that we can't do this. Well, that is a problem that faces everybody, unfortunately. I think looking at this, that we can get this rise down to 5.5%, even possibly less than that, but 5.5% relatively simply, and without the need to go through each one of these. The councillors may well wish to do that, but I suspect if we put 8 councillors in the room, you'll come up with 8 different sets of priorities, to be absolutely honest.
Maybe 9.
Maybe 9. You may well be right with that. So I'm just going to throw something out there, that one of the ways that we could look at this is that there's a nebulous item in here, and it's been there before, business plan initiatives, which is a notional 20,000, which appears on an annual basis in every budget for the last 6 years. I looked. Though it was taken out 1 year, I think, and then put back in again, if I remember rightly. So take that up, that is near and down at £17,000. It's a bit more than that, and that therefore it's 1%, because you said it was 34,000 for 2%, so let's say 17 for 1%. I also think probably you're right, when the tax base comes out, that will also dilute the need for the rise to be as high as 6.5. So what I was suggesting to the committee is that we could look to make a compromise arrangement here, and I've deliberately looked for a compromise arrangement here to reduce this to around 5.5% by considering the action that I've suggested. Now, at this stage, this isn't the formal one that's going to council. We have another look at this as a committee in January. So, but it would be helpful, I think, if that budget was drawn up, or we propose we looked at a budget, if you wanted to do two, that would offer the opportunity to bring it down to 5.5%. And of course, at that stage, you would also have a better understanding of the tax base. But I think that would show a bit of rigorous scrutiny by us as councillors, and taking into account the interests of their residents, which, if you remember, was my main reason for asking for the sensitivity analysis originally. Sorry, that's a bit of a speech. Apologise for that.
Just summarise what your recommendations again.
Well, I think it's possible that to draw up a budget based upon what's on here relatively painlessly at 5.5%, not 6.5%.
Let's take out, which one was it?
Well, when I was suggesting that we could consider flexing most easily is the business plan initiatives line, which is right in the middle of the page,
Brilliant.
20,000, because that really is a contingency fund.
I was going to say, does that get spent every year?
No, it hasn't been spent every year, has it?
I
Please
think
correct me.
it has on different projects. So I think the difficulty would be with that. It's really, I can take it away and look and see what what other implications there might be, but the difficulty would be potentially things that councillors have signed up to as part of the business plan, whether it be would have to be either not done or funded in a different way. But I can certainly take it away.
And that could be part of as to what exactly that means.
Yeah.
We don't know from me exactly what that means.
No.
Having said that, there is likely to be a surplus on the current year, which will fall into general reserves. So there are other ways of therefore funding back to 5.5% without actually having to cut back on that at all, or using the earmark or capital reserves to do so, and keeping the general reserves at the relatively high level we are at. So I think there would be ways of doing that. I agree with you, Chris, that we must, if that is presented, understand what that means, because at that point we are going to formally recommend a budget to council. So I agree. This is one of the reasons I think it's important we understand what the implications are. I'm completely on board with that, but I think that we should take the opportunity to have a look at how we might, fairly marginally, to be honest, reduce it.
That's right. If committees agree that that's the most palatable option, if that's what committee want, then I can certainly take that away and present that in January.
Okay.
It is a proposal.
Yeah.
Well, Councillor Drake, thank you very much. It's a very valid and relevant point. Do you have any comments or thoughts from the council?
Can I ask a question that is related but on separate issues? So when we have the first look of the budget, did we already know the favorable variance that the Rockhampstead Pavilions structural change? Do we take account in the first look? If not, then by this time of the second look, that savings should be enough to reduce 2% already. Shouldn't it? That is my question that is related, but on separate issue.
Yeah. So it would have been in the first look. Yeah. Yeah, so it's not in the change in this. So I know. So the budget has been set to reflect what's going to be put in as the new pavilion, or
so the saving has been taken in.
Yes, it's already been included in the first.
Further reductions. We need further reductions for the precept to be less increase.
Yeah. It's already been taken into account. Is that?
Yeah,
but the related, those savings related interest income and things like that is definitely an extra piece of resources, which should further helping, because I imagine that is quite a big saving from that perspective, and And if we didn't use the money over there, we should start be like putting into the 4% that you're just saying and compounding. So by the end of the January, it should help a little bit already. So that is my perspective.
Revenue from,
From the saving of the capital that we haven't used,
Okay.
should goes to the bank account for the interest and things like that.
So,
Capital.
so if I've got that right, so the saving from that's been generated this year from the pavilion will,
From saving the capital that's spent on the
Yeah.
pavilion, so then we have extra money to be in the bank account.
yeah. So when we come to the June meeting to look at the final position of the budgetary control and any favourable or adverse variances, that will be a decision that we made then. And that could be one of the cases that if there is enough, then we could use earmark reserves to top up that business plan initiatives. There's, I think in the report I've already mentioned with the sponsorship income that's been achieved in addition to the budget. Our current proposal is to put that for a specific events earmark reserve to help with the new events programme that's been agreed that will be happening next year. So it's certainly something that we can debate in June. There's no reason why not. But it just depends where we are once once we're in the final position of year end.
Councillor Wen?
well, are you happy with?
Not exactly, but I guess my question is more on, we save money that is not sudden, but change the purpose. After the saving, we should have more resources to roll in the interest. And that extra interest generated should help a little bit on it. That is my whole point of it. So I'm thinking whether it's necessary, whether we really have to necessarily to save that much for lowering the PISA by 2% increment. So
If you're saying that to meet the goal of a lower precept increase, we should have some positive effects from the cancelling of the pavilion project. Okay.
The other, thinking about positive impact, do we factor in potential new revenue streams into it as well? So I'm thinking paddle. I'm not quite sure what the date is for that, but what revenue that might bring.
So that's not built into this budget where it's too much of an unknown at the minute.
Okay.
It's likely to be when we come to look at the final budget in January, part of that report will be the medium-term financial strategy. So I'd have thought that we built into the future years rather than next financial year.
What do you think it might impact the next financial year? I can't remember what the timing is. It escapes me now.
I'm not sure if anything's been. I think it's too much of an unknown at the minute to
Okay.
build into next year's budget.
Okay,
At this stage,
so it's an upside potentially.
yeah, it's an upside that's hopefully coming. If things change between now and January, then I'll certainly include it as part of the final. But
Yeah.
if not, it's likely to form part of the medium-term financial strategy. Is something
Yeah,
we know is coming. Hopefully.
because the other way of looking at a budget isn't necessarily to reduce things, it's also to sell more stuff, isn't it?
Yeah.
Bring increase revenue in, so,
The only problem, of course, is costs tend to occur
yeah.
and projected income doesn't always occur. As again, many organisations, including the government, have found out.
Any other comments or thoughts, Councillor Timms?
Yeah, I like what John's saying. I think, the issue with inflation, and also I don't think it will be too painful to carve some of the money out of the budget. It's a relatively small amount in the overall budget, but I think it will impact on people who struggle. So I'm in favour.
Do you have a view as to if I've got it like a top-down precept target, increased target that we should be aiming for? So we've currently got sort of 6.5 or something.
Yeah, I think
Councillor Drake has mentioned 5.5. Have you got a number?
I don't have a strong view on it. You know, I was coming in tonight thinking of the 2%, but I could be swayed with the 1% as well. I think that might be a happy middle ground.
Okay. Councillor Liver, do you have any thoughts?
Not especially, no. I mean, it seems to make sense at the moment, yeah.
It probably won't surprise you, but I think we could do better. There must be other stuff in this budget that are nice to do's, not us to do's. Inflation is 3.8%. That's the official figure.
Yeah.
And at 5.5, we're still way above inflation. And I don't understand how we've even arrived at 6 point whatever percent. I mean, when inflation is 3.8.
Consumer price inflation, so it's possibly a different basket of spending.
Well,
But it's a fair benchmark, and I take the challenge. I think it's quite valid. Could I just put it? So first of all, thank you to Councillor Drake for raising this point, and thank you to Dan for doing the initial analysis. I think the point about cost of living is extremely valid. I think it's a cross-party concern. We all want to deliver value for money. We're all conscious there are people, even in so-called prosperous Harpenden, who, you know, costs are going up and incomes are not going up. Yeah. So I think that's fair. I may just suggest a couple of principles. I mean, I think we should agree a budget based on something that's deliverable. We don't want to put an undue amount of operational stress because there are unexpected events, bad weather and trees. We also have a council tax. We have a budget coming up. I don't know what's going to happen to council tax reform, if anything. I don't know. So there's some eventualities. Personally, I would like to avoid leaning on the balance sheet too much. I think we've got a good health. We're very fortunate to have a good level of general and other reserves there. I'd like to avoid dipping into that for day to day if that is a rainy day fund in my personal view. But actually, just to take the challenge further, I mean, why would we not agree a more kind of top rather than a bottom up? This is what we'd like to spend approach. We just take it more top down to say, right, well, but the max increase is 4%. Because you've got to look voters in the eye and say, well, your income is not going up by 6.5% this year. Why don't we just set a top-down target 4%? And I think there's a number of, and I don't think we need to hit one line item. There are, and then sort of set out over a dozen sort of budget items, and each of those can take the pain and share the burden in their own way. So I would be happy to take a more specific view, perhaps even more top-down target.
I mean, I was sort of sitting as largely I kept trying off as a compromise, as halfway between one and the other. I'll admit, you know, if in doubt, pitch it halfway. And I could also see a relatively easy way of getting to 5.5 without impinging, because I suspect that, as I say, with all the councillors in the room, they'll have different views on what you can take out of each pot. But it's a valid debate to have. If we have the proper time to have a look at it, of course, you don't want to take it out of one pot. You're quite right. You could possibly shave it off 7 or 8 different items and minimise the effects. And really, my only real point I was trying to make is that that's what reality is out there, is that people only do have a certain amount of money to spend, and there's lots of things we'd all like to spend some money on, but we don't necessarily have it on for the year. I mean, that's just life, really.
So if I may make another, I would say to someone who does work in the business world, the fact that you have a contract with someone in this day and age doesn't mean much. It is quite possible to go back to a vendor, say, I know our contract says X, but times are hard. I'd like to do something different. That happens every day in the business world, and I don't see any reason why if we feel there's a cost management improvement opportunity with one of our contractors, why we can't have the same conversation regardless of what's in the contract. I don't see any constraint on that.
Well, I totally support that, and you've just headed off. I was actually going to suggest that. I mean, insurance premiums. How many people do we go out to? You know, you can get insurance premiums down. Just on my own household, I had to renew my insurance earlier in the year, both contents and buildings. I had quotes for contents that went from 1,600 to 500. Why can't we do that?
We might.
Well, we might do that already, but and also the fact that you do have a budget with constraints as a buyer. I do this for a living, so it actually gives you the leverage with your vendors to say, I'm sorry, I can't go to this year because of the budget, and that gives you the legitimacy, and a good vendor, a good supplier will recognise and come back with an improved offer. That happens every day.
Yeah, I'm totally with you.
Personal view, I do like the challenge, and thank you very much, Councillor Drake, once again for raising this. I think, and also Daniel, thank you for the list of initial options. What do we think as a group here, Councillor Wen?
So 2 points. One, there's another one on here which I'd like to investigate whilst we investigate the other one in terms of a bit more detail for January, and that's the legal and professional fees. So is that something that we've always spent 100% of in the past, or could we reduce 2 down by 10? I don't know. And I guess it depends on the year. But then if general reserves are used for an emergency, is that something that if we needed to, we would tap into that? I don't know the answer to that.
Again, I can come back with more detail.
Yes, exactly.
but,
It's not for now.
Just as a brief answer, the legal budget has increased as part of the second look. What we're trying to do is preempt any costs that are coming up with the local government reorganisation. So if we're going to be taking on more assets, then there's likely to be more legal and professional costs involved in that. So just trying to plan for that known that's coming. I think obviously I don't know how much we're going to spend on legal and professional, but I thought there's going to be more costs coming as part of that bigger exercise.
Yeah. And so in terms of what I think we should do, I think we should delve into some of these in a bit more detail. 2 others that jump out are grants, apart from there's some in there that I think shouldn't be touched, like citizens' advice, because it generates, obviously in the report today, it helps people more than, the ROI on it's significantly good. But I don't know whether all the councillor expenses are used up, I'm not sure. But I would just we investigate some of these a bit more. 4% may be easier to achieve when we go through the budget in November and see what impact that's going to have on everybody as well. So I think more investigation for January, but I think a top-down budget might be good. But that would be, how much would that mean we'd need to get to? Is it 34?
Well, the 34,000 that added in his paper took it down by 2%, so that would take it down to about 4.5.
Yeah.
I suppose there's a possibility if the tax base came in as well, it would take it down to 4, roughly.
Potentially, yeah.
Yeah.
Roughly. So there's a range in there, depending on the council. My main objective today was to make a point about the top-down point, that's life really, to have a look at it. And also, as I said, as councillors, we are obliged to make sure that we're delivering value for money for our residents, irrespective of whoever they are. And just to get that challenge, I'd be very comfortable making it less than 5.5, provided the consequences of that
Not tough. Yeah.
we didn't actually undermine something that was of serious value.
Yeah.
We need to be careful of that as well. But yeah, I did feel very much that 6 or 6.5 just doesn't feel right in the current circumstances.
So in terms of coming to an action, so Daniel, so we're happy to I think the asked us here just to note and consider the options. But what I'm hearing from the council group, if I may summarise, is an appetite for a tighter increase, possibly closer to 4%. We can agree a number. Hypothetically, let's say the group here wanted to recommend a cap of 4%. How would we then update the budget for that, and what would be the approval process to have that as the agreed budget for 26-27?
So the thing that I think I need from committee is what that target is to be. So I've got the precept increase to work back to, and on page 21, what items are palatable to reduce down, so I can then present in January.
Well, may I suggest something else? I think if we can agree the target, I think it's your job to come up with the updated budget, because it's hard for us, I suspect, to understand the operational implications and the level of slack that exists in those. I wouldn't feel qualified to just express a personal opinion. I would also invite you to look at the contracted spend as well, as we've already discussed. Okay, so I don't think that is off limits. Okay, but I would be interested in an update to the budget, and to actually go. And you've got a great menu of options there. But if you had to limit to 4%, what would the updated budget be, line item by line item? And how would we? When would we then review and then ultimately sort of agree that as the budget for 26, 27?
So the next review would be by this committee in January to then be presented to council at the end of the month to meet our statutory deadline.
Yeah.
So it has to be done by the end of January at full council. The issue that obviously, whatever's palatable to the committee, I can take away and look at. The problem that I've got is it can't be. Whatever you want me to present, I can do my best to present that and show you the options. But if we just take the top line and say, right, okay, management plans, we'll just take everything off management plans, and what's been previously agreed by council, we won't do, and we're going to reduce the management plans. There's then those knock-on effects. So that's why I need to be steered by committee about what's palatable and what's not, so I can. So if we're saying that management plans, no, don't touch them because we've already committed to that work that's going to be done, then that's fine. I can take that away. And
Sorry, I don't understand this. I think Roger was quite clear. We need a steer. There's £156,000 in that line. What is it for?
So
because without knowing what it's for, how can you or anybody else here make a judgment? Actually, we don't need to do that. We can do without that, but we can't do without that. Further down, dog waste. I'm amazed that we hand out free dog waste bags when actually it is illegal for a dog walker to go out on the street without having them on them, and they can be fined. So why are we doing that?
That isn't it. That's the actual bags that go actually in the bins, isn't it?
no, actually there are.
Is it?
So
okay.
to come back to your point regarding the management
There
plan,
2.6 there. All these little things will add up to more than what Councillor Drake proposed earlier. So I think it is down to the finance department to dig in and give us a steer on this so that we can make an informed judgment.
Any other thoughts on this topic?
So I kind of agree, but I also think that some of them are obvious what they are. Some of them, there's a lot more detail within, so it's a little bit tougher. But also, would you, for example, we look at management plans, would you, when you're building that from a bottom up, would you put in some contingencies? What I'm looking for, thank you, Richard. In that, so for example, is there 10% of that? Is that contingency, or is it literally on the nose?
the problem that I've got, I understand where you're coming from, but what our job as officers to do is to implement what councillors want.
Yeah.
So councillors have agreed to those management plans and agreed to spend money on the various things in the management plans. It's all been agreed by committee, council, and is all available on our website and totally transparent. If we're not going to do those things, I need to be guided on what things we're not going to.
We just don't know what's in it, so we can't say.
Yeah, I don't think anyone's saying like,
Go ahead.
you know, stop this event. I think in any budget, you know, whether in the public or the private sector, you are always, you know, put under an instruction from your line manager to do more with less every year.
Yeah.
I am people,
Yeah.
okay? And it's not a case of, well, we're just not going to do that. We're going to say, right, well, okay, we just need you to save 2%. So it's a squeeze here. And some of these line items will have a higher yield because there's more contingency, or you can just think of a creative way of doing something different. This happens in the private sector every day. Richard, how can you do that for 30% less than you did it yesterday?
Mhm.
That is my day-to-day existence at work. Okay, and I don't think it's any different in the public sector. So I think the challenge from us is, can you recast the budget for next year with the same goals? I don't think those change at all. The same business plan goals. But actually, instead of a 6.5% increase, and notwithstanding the tax base ups and downs, we're going to give you 4%. And I think it's your job, because also we don't know what's going on day to day with the Community Services Committee, right? So I couldn't comment knowledgeably on what commitments have been made there. Council officers have. You're in command of the full facts. So I would actually, what I'm proposing actually is that we agree a motion here where we ask Daniel to work with the council colleagues, work out a budget with a 4% increase, same goals, that hasn't changed, but we are asking you to sort of, squeeze things here, find out where the savings are, including the contracted third-party spends, and give us a budget where we only have to increase the precept by 4%. I think that's I thought I'd like to raise that as a proposal for a vote on now.
And if we had the detail of that, then obviously we could say, well, 50% of this we don't want to do without, so we'd agree 5%. So if we have it by detail.
Well, it could be. So for example, you could get,
we could,
what I've seen a lot is you can get from say 6.5 down to 5
Yeah.
fairly painlessly.
yes.
5 to 4.5. Actually, it's the 4.5 to 4. That's where you're actually.
That'd be the tough bit.
That's the difficult decisions. Okay, and I think I've seen that time and again. So can I just propose a motion? I would like to, so thank you for the work that's been done. Very good, excellent. But I think we're getting a clear sense of, needing to demonstrate value for money and cost management to the public and our residents. It's a cross-party point of view, I would suggest, which I'm pleased to see. So what I'm proposing is we instruct Daniel to work with his colleagues to come up with an updated budget for the January CPFC meeting with essentially the increase for 26-27 capped at 4%.
Yeah.
Notwithstanding the tax base changes rather than 6.5. Would everyone be okay
So
with
is
that?
so would it effectively be, if we're going on John's rough figures, 4.5, assuming that the budget's going to have an impact of 0.5%?
Well, let's put some boundaries around this. So when you say the budget, you mean the government budget?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, but I think you mean when I was talking about tax bases, that's what you mean.
Yeah.
Well, the tax base is basically the number of equivalent residents.
Yeah, but there's no talk about the number of
It's not
houses.
every county.
Right, sorry.
Yeah, so.
But take that into account, yeah.
Because at the moment, just simply use the number he had as the tax base last year. Now, since then, so many houses have been built or developed.
So that adds in an
or
extra
something.
55.
So if you actually look, there's a schedule in here, I think actually, of the, yes, you see the tax base has increased from, it's on page 19, from 14,400 in 22-23 to 14,600 in 25-26. So what Dan is saying, that 14, if you look at it as well,
Yeah.
that number is very likely to go up again because houses that are being built were demolished. So it gets to, it's probably going to be nearer 14,700. We don't know, but to guess 14,700 on that trend. So by definition, therefore, that's a bigger number to divide the total by, and therefore that's a slightly smaller rise.
So if we take that into consideration, are we going
Yes.
for 4.5 is, I guess, is my question.
Okay, so my proposal, and let's move from there, is if we take the benchmark is in statement 6.6, so assuming 55 recent properties, precept is 6.07. My proposal is we recast the budget. So taking that assumption into account, we go to 4%.
Yeah.
That is my proposal.
So the same basis as what we discussed before, minus 2%.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
1%.
So 6.5, but then it's an adjustment because
Yeah.
we expect 55 new properties to come into the tax base. That might be 52, it might be 58, whatever, but let's say it's 55. Net of that increase in the taxable base, we forecast 6.07. My proposal is we cap that at 4%.
And what does that 2% look like in real pounds?
I'll have to
Okay,
come back with the.
Well, 2% must be about 34,000, wasn't
Yeah,
it?
that was
That's
the-
what you said. That
Yeah.
It's
34 of this total
So it's-
is about
it's-
70%
About,
of everything.
yeah, but it's a bigger percentage of the total of the things that can be flexed than the total budget.
It's 7% of that, I've just
Yeah.
roughly. I've
Yeah,
done a very
that's
rough
like,
calculation.
because of the contractual
Yeah.
stuff like staff, which we assume is not flexible in this, and I think certainly in the short term it's not. That might be the medium term plan, but it isn't, and that represents about 51, 52% of the budget on its own. So you have a much smaller area if you want to play with it, yeah.
Councillor Chop?
Before your motion, can I clarify certain things for my mind? So we are talking in 5.2, we are talking about, so if the increment is 6.47%, the price that only increased by 7.43 pounds.
Yeah.
So if it goes to like currently we are discussing about 5% or 4%, then is it just, for example, back lower down to £5 or 4.5 pounds, something like that?
Yeah, that's a ballpark, yeah.
So I'm in the discussion, I'm just stepping a step back. We are talking about like 7.43 pounds, right? And then we did a lot of things to like, I totally agree with the direction, but the absolute amount that we reduced to everyone is like £2 or £3. So what I want to present is from another perspective. If everyone contribute £1, it makes life easier, and if everyone have to spend one more pounds on it, is it that difficult? I know in the percentage it seems like high, but in the absolute amount to me it's just a personal feeling that I think.
Yeah.
So and that is the first question. A second, even we want to reduce, so should we try to reduce it in a more mild?
Reducing the increase.
Reducing the increase, yep. Reducing the increase. So we try to increase in a more mild way. So that is kind of like I'm not sure what in the previous like 10 or 20 years do, but I guess every year we have an increase in the price.
So on page 19, there's and it's a very good page.
Tax base, I know, but my point is like we are now they have a budget. We are now asking them to reduce the increment. So maybe there's some easy increment that is easily like reduced. So I would listen more to the team that the difficulty level. So I want to like judge about the.
Well, the thing about the increases is obviously they're cumulative, and actually, if you look at the table on 6.4,
Yes.
in the last 5 years, the council tax gone up at nearly 30%. Okay, because you're talking 12.9%, and then you 7%, and then nearly 9%. So it's the cumulative impact, and I think it has increased a lot. And we're not talking about a reduction in the budget. We're talking about still a 4% increase in an environment where inflation is about 4%, where we've had actually 6 years of very healthy increases in the precept and the budget. And I know we've increased our scope and we're possibly doing more events and things like that. But I think the budget is in a good place after 6 years of very above inflation growth. And I think it's a valid question to think about, just reining that in a little bit.
Totally understand. And my second point is that I still want to listen to Dan tell us about if we have to reduce the increment. So I still haven't quite like grasped the detail of the difficulty in that. I want to judge more on that part because I understand the direction and reducing the increment, even though I'm paying the price that I want 0% increment. But comparative, I want to listen to you about more what is the difficulty in that. So we want to reduce something. Certainly, we have to listen to the difficulty of reducing. So I know it's everyone's problem. I totally agree with that, and I just don't want to like cut off in a sense. Oh, let's reduce it to 3% or 4%, and then without thinking, what is the detail behind it?
Yeah, I just want to.
Okay, would you like to just make a couple of points?
Please, go ahead.
So just to try and cover a couple of things off. On the insurance, just to make it clear that we go out to an insurance broker who provide very competitive prices. When after COVID, we did see a big price increase, but they have leveled off now, and they're a very good broker. And I'm really pleased with the service that they provide us with everything that we do, not just the contracts. Like value for money is key in the way that we do things. Please don't ever doubt that isn't at the forefront of everything that we do. A bit more context with the council tax base. So what Councillor Chung was saying about small increases, if you look in for 3 years, 2014-15 to 2016-17, there was no increase. Then it went up by 7%, and then there was another couple of years of zero increase. If those previous decisions hadn't been made, we would have seen a lot smoother increases across the years. But where a decision has been made to have a zero increase, we've paid for that decision in future years. And a bit more context, the reason for the large increase of 12.91%, it's slightly distorted because that's when we took over Rothampstead. So that's why there's a big increase then, but it wasn't, that was because that piece of land was transferred over to us, so there was a bigger increase. Yeah. So that was for council taxpayers.
Managing a bigger enterprise and delivering more services.
Yeah.
That's a completely fair point.
And as we just to say as well, just so councillors are comfortable, we are a very lean authority, and for the amount that we do, and there's stats that I've provided last year or year before that I can certainly provide again that shows for the amount Harpen and the council taxpayers pay for what they actually get from us is staggering compared to what other councils pay and what the sort of the things that they produce from that council tax information, just to make those kind of general points about the work that we do. I think what would be useful for me is just to quickly know on that list what items are completely unpalatable, so I know not to waste my time looking at them.
Yeah, I've got a comment on that. Sorry. Just thinking about what Councillor Chung said, has got a couple of thoughts, well, one thought, and that's really about which ones of these give greater value than their investment. So, for example, I would say that the citizens' advice investment is something that the return on investment there is significant, and it's actually helping the people that we're trying our hardest not to affect with this. Yeah, so that would be a bit like shooting ourselves in the knee or the head, whatever. So, but for some of these, you know, if thinking about the residents, I understand the impact, the cumulative impact. It might be an extra few pounds, and it does add up when council tax is set to double and everything's kind of coming at everybody. But actually, the community aspects and things that come off these, is that a greater value to the community than the extra few pounds that we're asking for? So I'm always someone who likes to save before I spend and live to a budget, but I do think in the you know, COVID, the mental health crisis, a lot of stuff going on. A lot of the stuff in here is helping people in a rounder way that actually they get more from than their extra, whatever it is, £2 would give. So I just think we need to consider that as well. So I do believe in us having a budget and a target, but there's some stuff on here that actually you would really see a detrimental effect to the people we're trying to not affect. And that would just be a double whammy.
And I agree with you, the managing director always said price is what you pay, value is what you get.
Exactly. Yeah.
I think that one of the reasons I didn't actually propose going down as far as something beginning with a 4, and as far as a compromise, is that there are some things on here which, yes, it costs a bit more to produce, but you've got to say what is the added value
Yeah.
that you get, which is exactly goes
Yeah.
to your point. So yeah, but I mean, this is why we probably need a range of things to consider about which things fall into those different buckets to get the right balance between to get the right value for money for the residents of Harpenden. And that's it. So it isn't necessarily the cheapest, no. It's a matter of getting the right thing that's value for money.
But if we open up, if you know, if there was like a little tab you could open up on here, I would open up the first 4. And then I would open the business plan initiatives
Yeah.
and just really try to get an understanding of the detail under those. It might be that we don't say no to something, but we just might postpone it by 6 months. I don't know.
Well, that's a way of doing it.
Yeah. But I think for me, they're the ones that are the easiest to target. Dog waste bags. I don't know why we pay for them, but I kind of understand. We're saying that cleanliness and public health is a lot is more value than £2,630. So you know, I'm not going to argue about that one, but for me, those top 4 and the business plans, if we could just see the detail from that, and maybe we come back with whether there's a Google form we can vote on or something to give you a bit of an indication on where to go. But some of these, if we make some decisions on these, the decisions are going to have to go to council.
So
To reprioritise,
what I suggest, just to put some boundaries around this. I mean, I think for the time being, the business plan objectives remain the same. They don't change. We're not asking you to cut the budget. We're asking you to go with maybe a 5% increase in a environment where consumer inflation is about 4%, okay, which I think is still a pretty healthy situation. Every business that I've worked with has to drive productivity. Every year you do more with less. And we can see what happens, particularly in the NHS, where you can't deliver productivity. You get very severe problems with funding. So I think the cost challenge is legitimate. I don't think this group here, with all due respect, is qualified to make operational decisions on specific changes. We have a business plan. We've set the objectives of the council. I don't think those are changed. Role of this group, in my view, is to take a financial view, particularly top down, on what we think the boundaries of the council tax should be. Okay, John, you make some fair points in terms of the actual pound value. It may not seem like a lot, but actually, I think in terms of the optics and the percentages, it does matter, because if you make small, you know, how you scale those decisions is really important. So what I would propose is, and maybe 4% is too aggressive, we can go to 5. I don't mind, but I think let's disagree what the benchmark is, because there is just this delta about the 55 new houses that are expected. But I think the boundaries of this decision are business plan remains unchanged. You've come up with a very credible long list of potential items. Not all of these are going to give you the same cost improvement yield as others. I would expect variation between those. But I think let's disagree what we think is the right top-down preset for 5%, something like that. And I'd like Daniel to come back in January with an updated budget with the operational detail about this is what we think we can do, comes to the council officers. So I don't think we're qualified to make those judgments.
I think just a quick point where the dog waste bags has come up a couple of times, just to say from the difficulty I have, just so committee's aware, with something like that, it's not a statutory thing that we have to do, where you are well within your rights for us to stop providing dog waste bags. It's something that we've historically provided. I wasn't here when that decision was made, but we've historically provided them. If we take them away and then councillors get several complaints about dog waste in high traffic areas and things like that, and you used to provide dog bags there and you don't anymore, that will then be, that's the sort of guidance that I need, because if you're comfortable making that sort of decision, then we can reduce that budget. But obviously there are consequences that come with making that decision.
But again, if I may, if I may very gently push back, I think these options are not about binary, we do it or we don't do it. It's also about doing things differently.
Yeah.
Same outcome, but via a different process. So the dog bags, I personally support paying for dog bags. I think there's a massive public health issue with dog waste. So is the way of finding a cheaper, better type of dog bag, right? How are we tendering that? I don't know. Maybe we've got the best value dog bags in the world. I have no idea. We do. But I think we need to look through these items line by line, the same as every private enterprise does. And it's not a case of we either do it or we shut the whole thing down. That's a false choice, with all due respect. Doing it better. Yeah. Get more efficiently, more productively. And that's the process. I'd like the operational team. You've got a great team of council officers who everyone respects it very, very deeply. You know the insight, you know the operational detail. I'm still quite minded to propose 4%, but we're welcome to disagree, arrive at a different number. Happy, let's have that discussion. But we're looking to you as having the operational detail, the operational commands, and how do you, whilst meeting the business plan goals unchanged, how do we just do things better and go to maybe a 4% precept increase rather than 6.5? That's my point of view on that.
Okay, I'll try and take it away and do the best I can with it.
Yeah. And like I said, there'll be some things that are, okay, that's not too bad. We should have done that already. There'll be some things, and there'll be some things that are genuinely painful. I fully expect that. And let's have that discussion in January.
And just to give a committee hopefully some peace of mind that when the budget is set, first look, second look, final look, each line by line is considered and the budget is set with the premise of keeping the same standard and the same quality and the same frequency of what we're currently providing. That's the
fully understood. There's no implied criticism.
No. So,
but it's our job to to push, right?
I'd be surprised once this exercise is looked at, what's presented in January. There's likely to be a reduction in quality, a reduction in quantity of the services that we provide, and that will be the decision for the committee to make in January as part of the more detailed final look.
Okay. Any other comments before I come to a proposed motion? Comments or questions?
Well, can I just make a general point? So I take John's point about being careful, but 2019, 20, 2021, 21, 22, 4%. These were all increases by the Conservative.
I haven't made any party political point here at all, as I said before. But I would make two comments. Firstly, the 12% is actually largely to do with the devolution of assets, and that is Rothamsted and the other playgrounds that went with it and other assets. There was quite an extensive move from district to there at that time. Secondly, the CPI in that period was running at about 8 and 9%. So on that period. So, you know, just in terms of comparison now, these increases now are much higher than the margin over the CPI than they were then. Oh, I'm not saying, well, I said right at the beginning, you know, councils have all of these sort of problems of any colour, and I haven't tried to make any party political point in raising this at all. I've simply tried to raise what I think is good financial management, as I have done in the 7 years or whatever I've been involved with the councils. I think you know. I mean, I've never made it on a party political basis, and I'm not intending this to be. Interesting enough, tonight I appear to have turned out to be the dove, because I'm the one that's come up with 5.5, and people have thought we bang. So, which partly maybe surprised me, but you know, so I am.
It was just a point that I wanted to make.
I've got no argument that was under that period, and there were other reasons at the time, and maybe it wasn't well done at the time as well, quite possible. Yeah. But that's never a good reason for not doing something properly now.
Absolutely correct. It's absolutely the point.
Okay.
I am the dove.
I mean, I'm not happy with 4%. I think Harpenden is very well run and very efficient. And I feel that we're going to have to I can't see how on this list, we can, I mean, we might save 50 quid on poo bags, you know, and the amount of time it'll take to save 50 quid on poo bags is a waste. So I think we just need to be sensible about it. Whilst I appreciate we need to stick to a budget, I think there's a lot more value in here from a community aspect and a mental health aspect and supporting people that need it. You know, can we shave off £3 off Christmas displays and no one really noticed? Probably, you know, but if decorations are going to disappear, but are we going to notice them? Probably not. But for me, and because I think we need to support Daniel on this, I think the top four and the business plan initiatives should be the area of focus. The rest, I think, would just be detrimental. That'd be my gut feeling. I'm happy to be challenged on that. If there's any I've just not really I've kind of missed. And that's supporting businesses, individuals, volunteers, the environment, you know, people in need. It's supporting a whole range. So I feel 4 is too tough. That's the end of the.
I don't disagree with you, Councillor Wen, but in my experience, if we aim for 4, we might end up at 4.5, 5.
Yeah, but we don't have
why
time because we're literally going to get this back in January and then we're going straight to council.
4 as a target, but not necessarily the outcome.
I think we should be going for a number now, with 5%. I take on board what Dan was saying. I think they run a very lean, tight ship. I don't think there's a lot of fat in here, and I think if we're just saying 4%, and let's find where we can save money, we might be digging into good services that are necessary for the less fortunate people in Hartlepool.
Councillor Charlie, your thoughts?
And more with like Councillor Timmins and Councillor Dressworth, because I think like originally John proposed 5%, something like that.
And 5, what we were speaking about the tax base would come in as well.
Yeah.
I think 5 would be a reasonable.
Yeah, I think
I'm all for trying to create compromise to get everybody on the same page here. I'm not trying to create anything adversarial here. I am desperately trying to do something that's good for the town.
I'm totally with your point that we need to like limit increment so that we can like have a more efficient and
Okay, thank you. Councillor Lively, your thoughts?
I don't want to go on and on about dog poo waste bags, but I would just make the point that there are an awful lot of people playing sport on the common and in Northampton Park.
Yeah.
And for somebody to end up sliding into a tackle and going through dog poo, not only is it deeply unpleasant, it is incredibly unhealthy. And £2,630 to encourage people to pick up their dog poo, I think personally is worth it.
It's value, that one. The value bond.
Because people can get a really dreadful illness from dog poo.
I wouldn't even suggest touching the dog. I think
the first 4 items and also the business.
I think he's right about those 5 items because they're the big ones. And if you shaved a very small percentage of each one, you'd reach the target. Whereas if you spend a small percentage off these, you're actually eliminating the thing altogether.
Benefit,
so I'm happy with that approach.
Councillor Lovey, your thoughts on a target for the increase itself?
Yeah, I agree with
5?
5%.
Okay, I'm just trying to get a consensus before we go into vote. And Councillor Spector?
Well, it's down to the majority vote, isn't it?
It's a democracy.
Right, so I'm just conscious of time, and I think there's first of all, thank you very much for a very good debate, very legitimate debate, and excellent opinions and from all sides. So if I could propose this, so considering the definition in 6.6 as the benchmark, so that's the definition. So taking into account an expected increase of the base of the tax base, and you've come in at 6.07, using that as the benchmark definition. I'm proposing that with the business plan goals unchanged, we're asking you to come back in January with a budget with a 5% accept increase, okay? With a set of adjustments to the budget based on your operational knowledge. And yes, we fully expect some of them are going to be more challenging than others, and we expect that. But we're essentially asking the Daniel to work with the team to come up with a plan based on a 5% increase in January.
And targeting those 5 areas, so he can focus.
Where possible, I would just.
But sense check the others.
I understand the spirit of the statement.
Yeah.
What I would say is that I wouldn't claim to know half of what the officers do in terms of where the money's really being spent and where the opportunities are. But I think we guide them there, but I wouldn't ring fence those as the only items that they could look at.
Okay, I'm fine with that, yeah.
Okay, so just come to a vote. So all those in favour of a 5% update, please raise your hand. Thank you very much. Goodness.
Just a note, so the other thing's just a note the current position and the other things. So with the consider alternative options set out 6.7, that's your 5%. So I've done that one. So just to note the current forecast position, if you could please.
Yeah, all those in favour, please. Okay, next item is our internal audit plan. And Ben, can you run us?
Thank you, Chair. So the appendix attached to the report shows the intended internal audit plan for this financial year. The committee may wish to note that the sample testing is already underway, and I should be sending off the response this week to our internal auditors. Have to take any questions. There's no changes to previous years. Sorry, it should have said that. No changes to previous years, but have to take any questions.
Comments or questions, please? Okay.
Yeah.
All those in favour of noting the plan, please raise your hand. Thank you. Next item is our external audit.
Thank you, Chair.
Last year.
So the council is required to submit the annual governance and accountability return, so the AGAR, each year summarising our financial records and governance arrangement. This is reviewed by our external auditor called PKF Littlejohn LLP, who have audited our accounts since 2018. Last year's AGAR was approved by council on the 23rd of June, meeting the statutory deadline. The audit process was completed in September, and the final report confirmed compliance with proper practices, with one exception noted. Risk management arrangements were not approved by full council until June, meaning assertion 5 on the AGAR should have been marked no. Just to make it clear to the committee, we don't agree with the external auditors' interpretation on this point, along with several other town and parish councils across the country. We've challenged their reasoning as the legal wording is ambiguous, whether the risk strategy can be delegated down to a committee rather than being approved by full council. It remains a debate that's going on nationally. And so just one more point, that PKF Littlejohn are appointed as our external auditor for smaller authorities in England that fall under the limited assurance regime, which includes all town and parish councils. So they've been appointed with us since 2018, and the smaller authorities audit appointments limited have appointed them again. So for a 5-year period, so from 2022-23 to 27-8, they'll continue to be our external auditors. But have to take any questions.
Are there any implications of, I don't think it's a big point, this risk thing, to be honest. I understand the ambiguity point. Are there any particular implications for us, though, of effectively the report being qualified on this basis?
Not that I'm aware of. The only thing I think it's worth noting is that when we come to do the AGAR in June and talk about our year-end position, there's a form that you have to go through saying yes. There'll be a no because of this point. That's so my own personal view is the people of Harpen haven't lost out on anything by the risk strategy being approved by this committee in January, and then it not been agreed by council until June before the AGAR was approved. The their point is that it should have been approved by this committee in January and then gone straight to council in January, or at least the minutes noted. But I don't think the people of Harpenden have lost out by this.
Do we need to review our sort of forward track and the actions? I take your point. I don't think it's a material defect, but it's in terms of just our planning, so we get things done in time for. I mean, the audit is not a surprise process, right? And the scope is not a surprise, right? I think the scope has been stable for some time. So is there just like a planning remedy that we need to put in place so that we just, we get it right next time?
Yeah, so with this example, it's the risk management strategy is on our to be discussed in January, and it's on the forward planner for council for January as well. So this has been dealt with.
So our new timetable will not generate a similar defect in the next.
Exactly.
Okay. All right, good.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay. Okay, so we're being asked to recommend that we approve this return. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Thank you very much. Next item is bank reconciliations.
So if you remember last time, this is a new regular item that used to be considered by the Council and Risk Committee. It's just purely to note the bank reconciliation has been completed, like the current level of funds available, which is all in line with our financial regulations. But happy to take any questions.
Do we have to issue any checks these days?
Not if I can help it.
So it's highly unlikely we'll ever have a reconciliation with a reconciling item. Yeah.
Exactly, but we see.
Or you have to do it.
We still need to do a bank reconciliation. It still needs to be noted by the committee.
That's the right time.
I've 2 years of doing this and then just maintaining me.
Yeah. Now it's here.
I'll let you miss the
I do.
Any further questions from the? Okay. So all those in favour of, I'll take both actions at the same time. So in favour of receiving the bank reconciliations and noting the funds available, please raise your hands. Next item is receivables. Outstanding income.
So with the previous item, this is a new regular item on the agenda for this committee. I think I said last time, with the way that we operate, the majority of our transactions are paid before the goods or services have actually been provided. So we normally have very low levels of debt, and whether you see it as a good point or not, but there's nothing to really discuss on this because all the items quoted on page 47, everything's been paid.
Yeah.
So at the end of September,
Even the £2 from the Great British Sausage Company. I hope you collected that personally, Daniel.
I made the point of they owe 74 for their new stall and the £2 for the previous one when they messed up their payment.
We always collect on debts. Very good. Okay, all those in favour of noting the schedule of outstanding income, please raise your hand. Thank you very much. Good, thank you. Next item is the CASTAD updates.
So this report presents the information provided by CAB for the quarter, showing 150 clients helped over 526 cases. The committee may wish to note the case studies provided by the CAB at the bottom of page 51 tries to bring the numbers to life a little bit, but happy to take any questions.
For me, it just proves the point from the previous detailed conversation that we had, that you get so much value from it and the residents get so much value from it.
Yeah, it's a great window into life for a lot
The
of
reality for many,
Councillor Chong, yes.
I don't really have a question, but it's more on because I see this report like repeatedly. I just have a curiosity, different from curiosity. Why Harpenden is the number of cases is always like in the always previous report I have read, it's always highest amount.
Bedford.
Oh,
covers Bedford.
so Bedford have more cases.
Yes,
Yeah.
the more, so just a different area with
Yeah.
different demographics.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Very good. Money well spent, in my view. Okay, all those in favour of voting? For? Thank you. Right, next item is an update from the Harpenden Collective.
Thank you, Chair. So this report presents the monetary information provided by the Harpenden Collective. They've provided some great narrative on the work that they've done over the last quarter that I've distributed electronically. I think just because they've obviously, I think my wife would take the mickey at me, that they've done it on a really good marketing way and their presentation looks amazing. So I'd really recommend you have a look at it, but they use lots of colour and value for money. I don't want to print that out and provide that in the as part of the agenda pack. So that's why that. But a summary of the information that they've provided is on in paragraph 3.4 on page 54, but happy to take any questions.
Good to see if they're hitting the target. Yeah.
So I attended the Red Gables event in September, which Carl chaired, which was excellent. I think Carl actually did a really terrific job sort of chairing the event. It was very well attended. Good mix of businesses. I think they're split into three categories: sort of retail, sort of consultants, freelancers, and then other. So I tagged onto the retailer one, and just a very good discussion between some of the group. I think that what struck me was a lot of people working very hard, focusing on their businesses and customers, and I think there was a benefit to sort of giving them a space to step out and work with or connect with just fellow business people, because they're all sharing the same challenges with marketing and growing their businesses, finance and accounting and legal issues. So I thought it was a really terrific event, and there was a lot of very positive feedback on the day. So I'll be pleased to attend another one. Okay, all of those able to note the report, please raise your hand. Thank you. Okay, thank you very much. Do you have any other points to raise on the remaining agenda, or?
No, it's all fine as far as I'm concerned.
Thank
And then, about the blue bit anyway.
Thank you, councillor.
Sorry, I've got to go pick my daughter up. Thank you, everybody.
Okay, next questions are health and safety policy, please, Ben.
Thank you, Chair. So this report, this policy was last looked at by this committee in November of last year. Regularly reviewing health and safety policy is essential to ensure compliance with current legislation and manage risks effectively. As part of the review, there aren't any major changes this time. It's more a case of tidying up job titles and team names and things like that. But all of the changes are marked in the track changes in the policy, but have to take any questions.
Is there any particular reason on the section Appendix A? The only actual real changes, as you said, the structure changes are contract. Right. What prompted the need to put this in?
Just to purely cover ourselves off if ever we need to ask the question.
Right, there wasn't an event that triggered this.
No.
Right.
It's really trying to cover off all the
Just
bases.
if something had happened, someone said.
Any other questions? Okay. I mean, do you find that there's is the policy, do you find anything that is just causing undue administration? It's sort of, why are we doing this? I mean, I think it's seems to be a stable, mature document now. But again, I think there is a phenomenon that these policy documents sort of take on a life of their own. And, you know, I don't like to use the phrase common sense, but just sometimes you think, well, so are there any sort of unnecessary burdens that the team is coming up regularly that we think, I know it's in here, but it's actually not helping? Is there any of that feedback from the team?
There's not. The only other bit of information I can really add is where this document was a lot bigger and there was a lot more information in here previously. that there was the potential of being out of date. So, for example, there was a big section about heavy lifting of equipment and things like that. Whereas the way it's been adapted is to make sure that everything is kept up to date, and here's the link to the HSC website about manual handling. So we've already taken those steps to try and
simplify the document.
exactly.
Yes.
And to where that big exercise has been done previously, that's why there's only these minor amendments this time round. I've not received any feedback that there's any burdening things that the team have to do.
So the team is finding this practical, fit for purpose, relevant.
Exactly, Chair.
All right. Okay. Thank you. Okay, any other comments or questions on the? Okay. Thank you. So we're still being asked to note and review the policy and approve the alterations. So all those in favour of both, please raise your hand. Thank you. Very good. Okay, so I think we're coming on to our now. Gave me an instruction. Right. Okay, so we're just coming to the end of the non-exempt business, and I'm going to ask just to vote quickly on something. So in view of the confidential nature of the following items under section 7, which relate to business matters of other individuals and organisations, the public and accredited representatives of the press shall be excluded while they're discussed. This is in accordance with the Public Bodies Admissions to Meetings Act of 1960, as amended by the Local Government Act 1972. So I'm going to ask you just to vote to sort of close the non-exempted section of the meeting. We'll switch the cameras off, and then we'll continue with the final item. All those in favour of that, please raise your hand. Thank you.